Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenna, and has it been a year and a half since I've uploaded? Yes, yes, it has. But I decided I wanted to jump back into it and upload more often. So here I am. I want to talk about all the books that I want to read in 2026. Now, I probably should have made this video in like December when I made this list, but the middle of March is just as good. And already it has changed a lot, and I'm okay with that. That's cool. So, like any good Gen Zer, I was scrolling through Reddit and I found a subreddit called the 52 Books in a Year or something to that effect. And I thought that would be a really fun challenge, try to read 52 books this year. And each week, I guess, technically has a prompt, and I'm gonna go through them all. I will put the chart up here somewhere, and you can follow along with me. I am kind of making up my own rules for this challenge because I want to. Some of them I'm flexing a little bit because I didn't really find anything that I wanted to read that fit the prompt. And that's the most important part for me is to enjoy reading and having fun with it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make up kind of some things and maybe not be like the most strict with it, but that's okay. I just want to get into it and talk about all of the things. And not only that, is that I firmly believe that reading should be entertaining. It was actually C.S. Lewis that said, every good book should be entertaining. A good book will be more, it must not be less. Entertainment is like a qualifying examination. If a fiction can't provide that, we may be excused from inquiring into its higher qualities. In other words, even if a book is profound, if it's not going to entertain you, it's kind of not worth your time. And I agree with that. And I find it very hard to argue with C.S. Lewis because, one, he was a um, professional in apologetics and rhetoric, but also too, I think he's right. So, all right, let's get into it. So, one of the rules I've kind of made up is that if I don't like the book, I'm just going to DNF it and read something that I do want to read, regardless if it fits the prompt or not. I'm going to be very strict about that because I have read a lot of books just for the sake of reading them that I really didn't enjoy, and I realized life is too short to do that. So, a couple of these you'll notice I had started and I have since put down or changed the book, and I am totally okay with that. All right, so number one was set in an ancient civilization. I chose Beowulf for this because I think Ye Old England is pretty ancient. I mean, this was written in what's basically considered another language. Even though it's Old English and we speak English, or at least I do, it like you wouldn't be able to read it today. So I would say that's ancient. Kangaroo word on the cover. This was a new one for me. I'd never heard of a kangaroo word before, but basically what that means is it has its synonym within the word. So the book I chose is Tuck Everlasting. I think it's like a young adult, maybe junior fiction. It's kind of like a fantasy woodland setting. And everlasting has the word lasting in it, which is synonymous with everlasting, hence the kangaroo word. All right, written without quotation marks. I chose The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. I listened to this on audiobook already, and so I cannot tell you if it actually had quotation marks or not in it, but Google says it doesn't. So I'm going with that, and I'm choosing to believe it did not have quotation marks. Because I could have picked something else by Sally Rooney, but I didn't want to do that to myself. All right, I suffered enough with normal people, so that's not happening. So just the correspondent, and it was good. I would say 3 stars for me. Like it didn't devastate me like everyone was saying it would. All right, number four. Gosh, this is gonna be a long video, just so you know. I hope you have something cozy to drink. I got some ginger tea. So yeah. All right, number four has a dust jacket. This could literally be any book ever. Think of a book, you can order it hardcover and it will come with a dust jacket. And so I chose Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Last year I read David Copperfield so I could read Demon Copperhead and compare the two. And I ended up writing a 5-page paper as to why I did not think they were comparable. But anyways, I loved David Copperfield so much, and I really wanted to read another Dickens novel, so I chose Oliver Twist. It's one of his shorter ones, supposedly. Originally, I was kind of thinking about Bleak House, but it was really, really long, and I'm trying to pick some shorter-ish books. Not like they don't all have to be like super short or anything, but I just don't want necessarily like a 2,000-page book on this challenge. Um, but yeah, so the Oliver Twist seemed really interesting, and so I put that one for Has a Dust Jacket. All right, number 5, featuring a conspiracy. I selected I Who Have Never Known Men. This has been a really popular book recently. I feel like everyone's kind of talking about it. I actually put it on hold at the library, and when I went to go pick it up, uh, they didn't have it for me because I guess it was one of the book clubs there picked it for like their book of the month, and it was in the book kit still on the very top shelf, and there wasn't a librarian that was tall enough to reach it, like even with the step stool. So they had to wait for the maintenance workers to get there to get it down. So I will be picking that up today, actually, and you should see me reading that in my vlog. But I'm super pumped. Apparently, this is like a really short book. Like I sit down and read it in one sitting. So I'm gonna see if I can do that today. But I actually have no idea how long it is. And like another thing too is some of these books I won't really like know what they're about because I really enjoy going into books blind. I don't necessarily enjoy knowing a lot about the story. When I pick it up, I just enjoy the experience of discovering it and it kind of revealing itself to me as I read. So I just apologize in advance if you're expecting a super detailed explanation of every single book on this list. That's not what this video is. All right, number 6, title starts with the letter O. I chose Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck because I've never read it. Like I feel like that is like you read Of Mice and Men at some point in high school and cry your eyes out. And that that just never happened for me. So, I'm going to pretend like it hasn't been spoiled, even though I do know what happens. I'm just gonna pretend, for the sake of the story and my sanity, that I don't know what happens in this book, and I'm gonna go into it with a sense of naivety. Title starts with the letter P. This one I've already DNF'd, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. So I chose Persuasion by Jane Austen last year? No, the year before. I read like 3 Jane Austen novels, like back to back, because I loved her. I thought she was so witty, thought she was so funny. I thought just like the settings and the way she understands human character and interactions and social faux pas was just incredible. So I read Emma, which I think might be my favorite. Yeah, I read Pride and Prejudice, Emma, and then Sense and Sensibility. Sense and Sensibility was okay. Like, I enjoyed this story, but it's not something I'd ever reread. Now, Emma or Pride and Prejudice, I feel like, yeah, definitely could reread those. And so I was really sad, actually, um, when I picked up Persuasion. And look at this adorable edition, by the way, that my mother-in-law got me. When I picked it up and I was bored out of my mind. I think I only got like 5 chapters in and I was just there was too many characters too quickly, and the subject matter really didn't grip me. Maybe I'll give it another shot in the future, but I'm just gonna spend my time reading something else. So, unfortunately, Jane Austen, I'm so sorry, but Persuasion was a DNF for me. Okay, this one I'm really, really excited about. Okay, so when I started putting together this challenge, I actually had no idea that Sarah Beth Durst had another book in her Spell Shop series. Like, I didn't know it was going to be a series. I thought it was a standalone novel. I mean, like, it is a standalone novel, but it's still set in that world. The Enchanted Greenhouse. When I found out there was a second book, I went to the library that day and picked it up, and I loved every page of it. I actually think I might like the Enchanted Greenhouse better than the Spell Shop. I don't know, but they're both just so cute in their own right. Like, it is up there with the Emily Wilde series for me in terms of cute, comforting, and you just want to like live in that world and be best friends with everybody. And not only is there a second book in the series, but there's a third one coming out this year too, and we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. But if you have not read anything by Sarah Beth Durst, highly recommend. The way she writes feels like a cup of hot chocolate. And for the girls that know, you know that reference. Okay. Featuring a natural disaster, number 9. This one was tough for me because most of the books on like the Goodreads list of recommendations for this prompt were all dystopian. And frankly, I kind of feel like we're already living in a dystopian society. Things are scary enough. I don't want to pick up a book about a pandemic or a natural disaster where like towns and villages are being wiped out because of climate change. I live that every day. And so I just, I really, none of it was really appealing to me. So I kind of modified this one a bit by saying, okay, if there is like a weather phenomenon in it that's significant, like maybe like a really cold winter or a heavy rainfall or it's very atmospheric, I'll go with that. And so I selected an anthology actually called All the Names They Use for God. And I typically don't reach for anthologies. I say be a book or be nothing because I don't know. But seriously, I just typically don't gravitate towards anthologies. But this had really great reviews, and the subjects within each short story, sounded really interesting to me. And I think I read a collection of short stories actually. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that later. But um, where it kind of opened my eyes to go, okay, so maybe not all anthologies are terrible. Okay, 10 spans a decade or more. It was surprisingly difficult to find a book that covered more than a few years of someone's life. One of the books on there was David Copperfield, but I'd already read it. And so I went with A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I actually asked my grandmother for a recommendation that fit this prompt, and she suggested A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. That's her name. I love that name, Betty Smith. Um, just so I don't know, mature, Betty Smith. Um, but if I had to summarize this book in 2 words, it would be feral children. Absolute feral children. I adored it. Absolutely adored it. Did it span a decade? Kind of, because it talks about the main character's parents as like younger teenagers slash young adults and how they met and got married and then had their children and then I'm totally blanking on main character's name right now, but on her growing up from like the age of like 10 to 16, I believe. And so it's not quite a decade, but I would still say it's significant in terms of like coming to age. And I absolutely adored it. I thought it was hysterical and it captured what life was like in Brooklyn during that time period, I think, perfectly. There were so many things in that book where I was like, if parents allowed their kids to do that now, like, hello, CPS, like, our, I think, like, in the ethos of society, our opinions on what children should and should not be allowed to go out and do has changed so much, like incredibly so. Like we track them, we're like background checking their friends' parents, and in this book they're like, "Ah, yeah, here's a nickel. Go walk 16,000 blocks to New York and buy me this pack of cigarettes." This is like it's just nuts. It's nuts to me. Um, and it also tackles themes like self-segregation, not in terms of black and white, but in terms of immigration. Like so, the Irish don't like the Italians, and the Italians don't like the Americans, and like they all just kind of like hate each other. But yet they'll like buy things from each other. Oh, and it talks a lot about the Jewish immigrants as well, which was fascinating too, because like everyone hated the Jewish immigrants for some reason, and yet they consistently bought things from them. They're like, oh man, like we hate these Jewish immigrants, but go buy the rye bread, get the good pickles, and be nice. And it was just kind of wild to me because I grew up in Southern California, which is like a melting pot. And so, like, it's so diverse. You can find anyone and everyone there, and everyone just kind of like gets along for the most part. So, reading about that was really eye opening to me, that they self segregated into like different areas, and the interaction. I think that was almost more interesting to me than her life story. But if you haven't read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, I would highly recommend it. It was a pretty quick read. It was an easy read, but I keep thinking about it. And I think that's like the mark of a good book, is like when you finish it and you keep thinking about it, or you encounter things in your day-to-day life that you're like, "Oh yeah, that reminds me of this book." So, 10 out of 10, recommend. 7 requires suspension of disbelief. This was a super easy one to fill, because really basically anything after the Victorian period requires the suspension of disbelief. But I wanted to really push myself and read something in a genre that I typically don't reach for, and that is sci-fi for me. I've always had a really tough time reading or watching anything sci-fi, specifically science fiction set in space. And I don't know what it is about it, but it's like my eyes glaze over and I am so bored. Like, and I know it should be fascinating because I actually really like astronomy as a subject. However, the fiction space thing, I don't know, I don't really like it. And I've given it quite a good chance, I think, in the past. Like I've tried watching Star Wars like 3 times and I've fallen asleep every single time. Um I don't get it. Although the ride at Disneyland is fun. I like that. That's cool. Yeah. So I chose a science fiction novel that's not set in space. Journey to the Center of the Earth. I was like, you know what? I feel like that's something I could actually potentially like because I do like Jurassic Park. Not the book, the movie. I've never read the book. Michael Crichton. Okay, sorry about the random shift in position. My iPhone storage got full. I guess I've been yapping too much. Okay, so anyways, like I was saying, Michael Crichton reads like a textbook. Um, but I feel like I could get into the journey of the center of the earth because it's very more adventure and less spaceships. So, yeah. All right, moving on. 12, genre defining read. Genre defining read. I chose The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, and I'll probably end up reading like a couple of his poems when I pick this up. Um, but I really feel like he did define like that gothic horror poetry genre. So I'm gonna go with that. I mean I've actually like read The Raven before, but I'm gonna reread it because I think it's just so atmospheric and perfect for Halloween. And I'll probably do like an immersive reading experience where I listen and follow along. Okay, 13 book face. I had to look this one up too. This is any book with a face on it. And so I picked Panchinko, I think is how you say it. Um, it is about colonized Korea in like the 40s and 50s, and the relationship between the Koreans and the Japanese who are pushing like the Western lifestyle onto them. Um, Not only that, but it's like a mother-daughter relationship, and it kind of follows like the consequences of marriage, like the your choices in marriage and like found family kind of deal, I think. I'm only like 50 pages in, but and I also think the author is Chinese, Min Jin Lee. I'm so sorry, I'm butchering the name so bad. Um, but that's really cool. I love uh reading books and stuff by minorities because I think it brings such a new perspective to my life. Um, but yeah, and so far I've really been enjoying it. I'm like I said, I'm only like 50 pages in, and the copy I picked up from the library, of course, doesn't have a face on it. Um, but there is an edition somewhere out there with a face on it, so I'm counting it. I am counting it. Because I fully anticipated picking it up with like the cover that you see on Goodreads. That didn't happen. Okay, includes a character list. I chose the Iliad because the Iliad and the Odyssey have been on my TBR for 5 years. Again, I never read them, but I want to. Like these are books that like I want to read, and a lot of times with classics, or not classics, it's not even really a genre, epics. I have a hard time keeping track of characters, and so I'll have like Spark Notes open with the list of characters so I can follow along. So if the edition that I end up picking up doesn't already have a list, I'm going to make my own list. So it counts. All right, subtitle with a comma, number 15. I chose Sir Gawain and the Green Knight by J.R.R. Tolkien. Well, it's translated by J.R.R. Tolkien. For some reason, last year, I just decided I wanted to learn more about Arthurian legend. And so I did a lot I didn't so like I didn't know that there wasn't like a book like about King Arthur and that it was a lot like Grimm's fairy tales where it was oral traditions passed down and so every version is a little different. So I ended up going with The Once and Future King by T.H. White. I believe her name is, yeah, T.H. White. Because apparently this is like a really comprehensive book about Arthurian legend. And I actually almost DNF'd it because The Sword in the Stone and about his young Arthur's younger years were very, oh, it came off very juvenile, and I wasn't really liking it. But once it got more into like Lancelot and Guinevere and like the knighthood stuff, I started really, really liking it. And so that's kind of like my palate cleanser, I guess. It's like the book I'm reading in between books, or I'm waiting for like to be able to pick up a book from the library or to come through the mail from thrift books, something to that effect. And so when I was reading this, I was like, I think that would actually fit this prompt pretty well and serve to expand my knowledge on the subject. So that's why I'm going with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Right. The next prompt was a Deus Ex Machina. I had to look this one up. Apparently that's just where like there's like a problem in the plot and it gets resolved suddenly and conveniently. And AI told me that Fingersmith by Sarah Walters fit this. It is a historical fiction and it is about a girl raised in a baby farm. If you don't know what a baby farm is, y'all, you need to look that up. It's insane. I guess back when it was legal for women just to like get rid of their children, uh, there would be like this house where they would give their infants, and then other women who had had like a miscarriage or a stillbirth or their children died young could go and pay this house for a child, and they could just take this child. Anyways, so it's about a girl raised in a baby farm and she kind of like joins like this band of pickpocketers, hence the name Fingersmith. And apparently there's like a love triangle type situation. I don't know, it seems really cool, very mysterious, very up my alley. I'm a history major, so historical fiction I do really enjoy. Okay, 17. Author's bio mentions their dog. Do you know how hard it was to Google author bios that have a dog in it? There were no results. I couldn't find an answer to that. And so I gave up and I just picked a story that has a dog in it. And I selected The Goldfish by Donna Tartt. I read The Secret History a couple years ago and I liked it. It was really good. I didn't know what an unreliable narrator was when I read it. And so I kind of want to reread it knowing that and see how my perspective has changed. But actually, my friend Brian, from I've known him forever, he recommended this book back to me when I was in like middle school. And so she's been on my TBR for like a decade. And I'm like, okay, yeah, so I'll give that one a shot. I know it's a really long book, but and people either love it or hate it. So I'm gonna go into it and hopefully love it because if Brian loves it, then I should love it. Okay, 18 provokes strong emotion. Um, right now, I'm gonna suggest that you skip to this timestamp if you are struggling with your mental health right now and you don't think it would be best to hear subjects around mental health and poor decisions resulting from mental health. Also, there is going to be a few spoilers for The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath um, in this discussion because this is something I have a lot of opinions on. Okay, you have been warned. Please skip here. Um, I didn't really know what this book was about when I picked it up. Like I said, there were like these lists on Goodreads for these prompts, and I was like, oh yeah, Sylvia Plath, she's a poet. This is her only novel. I'll pick it up. Um, it gave me the big sad. Like, I almost ended up shelving it, not like to never finish it again, but just to put it away for a while because the way she writes about depression, I was like, I feel like I'm reading my own thoughts sometimes in that book. I was like, it was really really triggering. Like that whole book should be a trigger warning. But the way she describes mental illness and how like you're under a pane of glass under a bell jar and there's that separation between you and the world and once you kind of get through an episode like yeah you're through that episode but you're just wondering the whole time when is that bell jar going to get lowered again. And at first when I finished it I was really emotionally upset. um and I was like 3 stars made me sad and there's enough sad in the world and I don't want to compound the sadness. But it's been about a month since I've read it, and I keep thinking about it. And the really sad part too is that it's semi-autobiographical, which means like she went through a lot of these experiences, especially like with the mental hospitals back in the 50s and 60s. And that just like absolutely broke my heart when I found that out. I'm so glad that with my mental health struggles, I have the modern care that we have now. Um, but even the way she was writing about her like her relationship with her mom and how her mom was like, "See, like I knew you could choose to feel better." And like the character's like, "Yeah," but like on the inside she's like, "I want to kill myself." But I have to put on this brave face for the sake of everyone else, even though I'm the one living this and experiencing it. Um and since then, since I've had time to step back and really digest it, I think it is a 5-star read. It's not something I will be picking up again anytime soon because I don't think that's gonna be healthy for me at this point. And if you are struggling at all with your mental health, please don't read this book. Like that it is just trust me, it is not for you right now. On a brighter note, number 19's prompt was a nosy neighbor character. The only book that came to mind for me was Anne of Green Gables. And if you've read that book, you know, like, yeah, okay. Literally sunshine in a book. Um, but I couldn't think of anything else that really had like a nosy neighbor in it if it wasn't a mystery, and I don't like mysteries. Which is gonna be ironic about because I'm gonna be talking about this next book. But I selected James and the Giant Peach because of the paparazzi. You know, like when he grows the giant peach and the paparazzi come, they're like, "Yo, show us the peach, dude." Um, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna count it. It's not a neighbor, but there is like a lot of nosy characters in it. And so like I know I literally just said I don't like mysteries, But day of the week in the title, I selected the Thursday Murder Club. For two reasons. One, there's a TV show that looks fantastic. So I want to finish listening to this book and then watch the TV show. But when I tell you I've not enjoyed listening to a book in like this much in a long time, I truly, truly mean it. It is just absolutely phenomenal. It is hysterical. Like I throw it on when I go rollerblading or on a walk, and I'm just like giggling like a crazy person. I've enjoyed every second of this book, and I think I like it because it's less focused on the actual mystery and more focused on the relationships at the retirement home. And they're like, we're not friends, we're crime partners, but like they're totally like BFFs, you know. And there's also like some serious subject matter in it as well. So it's not just fluff. And I think it's perfectly balanced. And the audiobook is amazing. It's amazing. All right, we are like almost halfway through. All right, 21, written in the 1800s. Last year, I read Les Mis. One of my favorite books now. Okay, one of my favorite books. And I mean, like, I bawled my eyes out when I finished Les Mis. I did not want it to end. So I wanted to read something else by Victor Hugo. So I selected The Hunchback of Notre Dame because I remember that being one of my favorite cartoons growing up. And if I enjoyed Les Mis that much, I'd probably enjoy other works by Victor Hugo. Okay, 22, spotted in a TV series or movie. This was a difficult one because most of people who are doing this challenge suggested Catcher in the Rye because for some reason Catcher in the Rye is just like featured in a lot of movies. I have no idea why. But I remember when I watched A Man Called Ove, The Master and the Margarita was the book that his wife was carrying at the train station, which is kind of ironic. Anyways, and so I'm going to be listening to that on audiobook. I partly picked this too because I want to get over my fear of Russian literature. I have a lot of opinions about Russian literature. I read Anna Karenina. Okay. It took me 3 years, 3.5 to finish Anna Karenina because I hated it. Why is everyone named Alex or Alexei, whatever, however you say it? Why does everyone have 3 billion names? And why is there pages on pages on pages of ranting about theology and politics that do not move the plot forward? I feel like Tolstoy was writing just to make himself feel smart. And I was about 300 pages in when I realized I don't have to finish this book. But then I was also like, I'm going to finish this book just to say that I've read Anna Karenina out of spite, pure spite. So it took me like 3.5 years to read it. And when I finished it, guess what? I still hated it. And I've talked to some people, some friends that have read other Russian literature, and they said it's all very similar with the millions of names and the rants about politics. And this one seemed like the least mm, political ranty of them. There's a talking cat, so I was like, all right, a little bit of magical realism. Let's get into it. I think like a couple hours into the audiobook. Um, I'm not loving it. I'm gonna give it a couple, like maybe another hour or two, because I'm just getting to the point where he's like sitting down and talking to the cat in his apartment. And this isn't a spoiler. The cat is literally on the cover. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know if I'll finish it or not. Okay, 23, the grumpy sunshine trope. That's basically where there's like a grumpy character and a happy character, and they get together in like some fashion, not necessarily romantically. A lot of the suggestions were romance novels, and I like the occasional romance novel. I'm not gonna lie. Like Field Guide, the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love was one of my favorite reads last year. Okay, it was so cute. But I didn't want to put that on my list just because I have to be in a very specific mood to read that. So I selected Heidi. Like, yes, the children's book Heidi. Because I remember my parents reading this to me as a child and her going to live with her grandpa and her grandpa being like, "Oh, I hate everything." And she's like, "Happiness can cure everything." Um, so yeah, I picked Heidi because I think that'd be a fun little light pick me up. Okay, uneven number of chapters. I did Google this one, and Google told me that Perfume, the story of murder, had an uneven number of chapters, and that was on my TBR. So that's why I picked it. Really? That simple. Okay, 25 includes a red herring. I've never read Sherlock Holmes. Can you believe that? I've never read anything by Sherlock Holmes. And so I selected The Hound of Baskerville. I thought that would be like a really fun autumnal read this year. Um, yeah, apparently it's short, so like even though I don't like mysteries that much, I can still read it and say I've read something by Sherlock Holmes, or not by Sherlock Holmes, featuring Sherlock Holmes. He's the character. Okay, title in a serif font. Again, this could basically be any book based on the edition that you buy. But I selected Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman because Practical Magic 2 is coming out this year. He was excited. I'm excited. Also, it's my mother-in-law's favorite movie. So, and I think it might be her favorite book too. Not sure. But yeah, so I thought that'd be fun to kind of like read Practical Magic and then go see Practical Magic 2. Okay, 27, two plus authors or an author that is using a pseudonym. And I selected Alice's Adventures in Wonderland because I've actually never read it. I've never been a huge fan of the cartoon. It just never really like kind of vibed with me. But I want to read the book. I already own it. So I'm like, might as well. It's not that long. Okay, 28. From a series at least 8 books long. Uh yeah, no, not doing that. Because if I like one of the books in the series, then I feel like I have to sit down and read all of the books in the series before I'm allowed to read anything else. And I almost picked Poldark for this because of that TV show is as close to perfection I think as you can get for a TV show. But also, I didn't want to spend like my time reading a series where like I already know what happens. I'm just honestly would rather rewatch the show because it is fascinating and he's really hot. So instead I just picked a series, like a book that has multiple books in it. Book that has multiple books in it. I've been talking for too long. That's not that's not a sentence. Um I kind of have like a slight obsession with Ellen Montgomery. So I selected Emily of New Moon because apparently the debate between Anne of Green Gables and Emily of New Moon is quite contentious. People have lots of opinions on this, on which one is better. So I'm gonna read Emily of New Moon and form my own opinion. But it looks adorable, like all of her books. Okay, 29, set in the Arctic or Antarctic. Fun fact about me, I spent a year in Alaska. I did. I lived there for a year. Low-key, high-key, miss it a lot. And so I wanted to read The Call of the Wild by Jack London. I actually did watch the movie back in college, and I don't really remember it, but I remember liking it, but I just don't really remember it. And so I was like, I feel like that's really like the quintessential Arctic book. So it is short and it's Jack London. And I like Jack London's poetry, so went with that. Okay, 30 guys. We are like over halfway done. I'm trying not to make this video too super long. But author related to another author. I selected Wuthering Heights, and no, it was not because of the movie that was coming out. Um, although I did see it. I have opinions on it. Um, anyways, I actually selected it because I tried listening to the audiobook for it probably 3 or 4 times. But if you're familiar with Wuthering Heights, some of the ways the characters speak is written phonetically. And so I was having a really hard time like actually understanding the narrator because she was reading it like in their accents. And so it was just like a book that I had to physically sit down and read. And when I tell you I was not expecting to like the book that much, I was shocked. Like I didn't want to put it down. Like I was finding like every little excuse to like slip away and read. I loved it. It was a 5 star for me, like an easy 5 star. So 31, author related to another author, Imprompt 30. I chose Villette, I think is how you say it, by Charlotte Bronte because I love Jane Eyre. Loved Jane Eyre. And I actually thought that was like the only book that she had written for some reason. But I got that confused because Emily Bronte only wrote one book and Jane Eyre, not Jane Eyre, Charlotte Bronte, there we go. Come on. Thanks, Jenna. Um, wrote multiple novels. So yeah. Okay, 32 publisher starting with the letter B. According to Google, The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clark has a publisher that starts with B. So I read that. And it was okay. I just felt like it was too short. Like it really would have benefited from being more of like a novella rather than the very short story that it was because I felt like it needed more detail. It just really lacked like I felt like it was over before it began. But it was cute, you know. But I don't know. I've tried reading other works by Susanna Clark and they just don't really resonate with me. And that's fine. A lot of people love her. Okay, 33, a standalone fantasy novel. I selected Wayward by Emily Hart. This was one book I actually wanted to read last year, but I just never got around to it. But again, it's one of those books about mother and daughter and generations, and I think there's like a sprinkling of the witch trials in there, and the cute cottage that they live in the forest, and it just seems so whimsical and magical. And there's witches and empowered women, and talking about their oppression and just like, girl, say less. Say less. Okay, 34. Inspired by a top grossing movie in the year you were born. Um, I didn't like any of the options for that. So I just went with a movie that was made in the year that I was born, which is 2001. And Spirited Away came out in 2001. And I was like, oh, okay, cute. I've never seen it. Um, I tried watching it and it really confused me. Uh, it's not smart enough for it, I guess. Um, but last year I started really getting to translated Japanese novels, and so I was like, okay, like I could pick like one of those cute Japanese novels. And so I selected What You Are Looking For Is in the Library. It has great reviews. Everyone seems to love it. And again, I think it's more of an anthology, which I said I was going to get to. Which, give me one more prompt and we'll talk about it. I am opening my mind and my heart to anthologies. Um, anyways, yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that read. I think it'll be a quick read and like a nice little palate cleanser. Okay. Character with a secret identity. Okay, so the book that got me into the Japanese novels last year was Will Prescribe You a Cat. Now, I picked up this book fully expecting to like not really like it. Like, so I think I picked it up after more of like a heavier read. And I was like, I just need something light and fun. And so I picked it up and I loved it. I think it was like a 4 or 5 star read for me. And the doctor, you know, like has a secret identity. Like that's not a spoiler or anything. It's like, yeah. But anyways, and there's a second book in the series. We'll prescribe you another cat. So I am kind of just on a hunch going to assume that there is a character with a secret identity in this book so I can read it. Hey, sorry for the change of lighting. My iPhone ran out of storage and honestly needed a little bit of a brain break. So we're back. Okay, so if you're ready for a hot take about Prompt 36, award-winning book from last year, typically I find that most award-winning books or lists of like for example the New York Times best book of the century are absolute garbage. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I truly think these lists are more dictated by the court of public opinion and what fits the popular political narrative rather than actual good literature. I mean, like, I know I just dunked on her earlier, but if Sally Rooney made the list on best books of the century, can we really trust it? However, I wanted to respect the challenge. So I did look through lots of lists, and I honestly forget which award this won, but it really caught my attention. I was like, this sounds so interesting. So I'm gonna just read the brief description on Goodreads to you because I'm having a hard time putting it into words. It's called The Safe Keep, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the author's name because I will butcher it, and I don't want to embarrass myself that badly. Okay, an exhilarating, twisted tale of desire, suspicion, and obsession between two women staying in the same house in the Dutch countryside during the summer of 1961. A powerful exploration of the legacy of World War II and the darker parts of our collective past. Ooh, that sounds fun. Yes, please. So that is on the list. I'm actually really looking forward to reading this. Okay, 37. This was a fun one. It started on the 26th of the month. So really, any book you want to read? I originally had, oh gosh, what was it called? Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone or something like that. But I just couldn't get into it, so oh my cat just walked in. So I chose Heart the Lover by Lily King because that was a really popular book. I enjoyed it. If you've ever read Tom Lake, it was very similar thematically to Tom Lake. However, Tom Lake is a million times better. This was, if I had to describe it in my own words, a more smutty version of Tom Lake. It was good. I enjoyed it. Not as profound as people were making it out to be. Okay, 38, a domestic fiction. I took this as to mean like fiction set in a domestic setting, like a household. And so I chose another Jane Austen novel, Mansfield Park. I have no idea what it's about, but I know it's by Jane Austen and I like Jane Austen. So there we go. Okay, 39, a book that cost you nothing. Again, this could be like any book you want, especially if you use your library. If you're not using your library, what are you doing? Use your library. They can order any book you want. They could do interlibrary loans if they don't have it in stock. It's free. And not only do they just have books, but they have like things like I could go rent a Cricut or a sewing machine or a puzzle from my library. They have free classes. I'm going to a yoga class tonight. Like, use your library, get on that. So yeah, I chose The Book Thief because I have been hearing about The Book Thief nonstop since forever. And apparently it's a great book. And so my mother-in-law and I are actually going to read that together at some point. And I'm looking forward to it. I like historical fiction, and apparently this just like will rip your heart out and shred it into a million pieces. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, 40, author's first and last name start with the same letter. I chose Shel Silverstein because he is typically a very happy author. And again, I like happiness. Real life has enough sadness. And I never read The Giving Tree. That was never read to me growing up. So I did select that. And as much as I love Shel Silverstein's poetry, this just didn't hit the same way that his poetry did for me. Unfortunately, I don't know, I was kind of bummed about that, but also it might be due to the fact that I'm 25 and this was written for 5-year-olds. So I'm not gonna put too much weight into my opinion on this book. I think for a child, it is a really great read to teach them about emotional boundaries. And it wasn't happy like a lot of his other stuff, which was a bummer, but I read it and it counts. It counts as a book, even though it's like 2 pages long. Okay. 41, A Guide to ... This was a fun one to look into. So last summer, I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I typically don't read a whole lot of horror. Like for example, when I read Pet Sematary, I could not sleep for 3 days. I legitimately thought it was going to be about pets. It was not about pets, sort of. It's not that I don't enjoy horror novels. I actually kind of do, but then I'm just like such a huge baby. But Grady Hendrix, the way he writes, it's not like terrifying, you know, it's just like, it's like fun, spooky. And I don't know, like, if Summer Camp was a book or if Summer Camp was an author, it would be Grady Hendrix. Like, even though he writes horror, it's totally summer vibes. Like, I remember I was reading My Best Friend's Exorcism and I just took it to the park and laid out in the sun and just devoured it. It was, the ending was a bit cheesy, but overall, it was a really good book. And so I chose another one of his novels, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. That sounds like so much fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. And I live in the South. And so that is going to be a fun summer read. I'm really, really looking forward to that. Okay, number 42 includes a handwritten interior font. I honestly really didn't know what that meant, but Google said The Lies of Locke Lamora fit that. So that's what I chose, because that's been on my TBR, even though it is a part of a series and technically an epic fantasy, I'm pretty sure. The plot just sounded so intriguing. It's about this orphan who grows up and learns to make his living stealing under the tutelage of a famous con artist. And he becomes like kind of like the leader of the underworld, like thieves. I don't know. It sounded really cool. So, and it's a big book. It's like 700 pages long. I didn't realize that when I chose it for this challenge, but I think I can do it. I think I have it in me. All right, number 43, a Goodreads recommendation for you. Goodreads has been trying to get me to read The Little Prince forever now. So I finally went to the library and I read it. It was okay. I mean, again, it was probably the age discrepancy about the book. So anyways, but yeah, I mean, I read it. It was okay. A lot of people really love this book. It just didn't, I think, resonate with me with how it does for some other people. Number 44, literary device, personification. For this, I chose Howl's Moving Castle because I really wanted to watch the movie. And unfortunately, I didn't like either. The book, I don't know, it was really lacking for me. Like, I don't know. It just didn't really flow very nicely. I felt like things weren't very fleshed out. And then the movie was a lot different from the book and not in good ways. I also just don't like anime, so probably had a big thing to do with it. But this next one I adored, biographical fiction, 45. I read Hamnet. I adored this novel. I absolutely devoured it. I loved how it was written. The prose were beautiful. The descriptions of family and the plants and the house and the complexity of relationship. I just loved everything about this. And I found out that I actually originally knew it was a movie before I knew it was a book. And so when I found out it was a book, I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta read this so I can watch it this weekend. And so I like sped read this book so I could watch it over the weekend, only to find out it was no longer in theaters and not streaming anywhere. So I had to wait like a month to watch it on Peacock. But I loved the movie. I loved the book. I thought the movie was very faithful to the book. Obviously, they had to cut a lot of things out. But I thought it was very respectful to the original source, and the costumes. Oh my gosh. Gorgeous. Gorgina. Okay. Loved it. If you have not read Hamnet, please do yourself a favor. Go read it. Okay, and then 46, nonfiction about character in prompt 45. I don't want to read a nonfiction about William Shakespeare. Sorry, I just don't. So instead, I am reading a nonfiction about something. So I chose 12 Years a Slave. I think it's a memoir, but I'm not positive. But it sounded really interesting, so I added that to my list as my nonfiction. 47, guys, we're almost done, I swear. 47, a dictatorial mark on the cover. I chose By Night in Chile. This was recommended by another booktuber. I'm blanking on his name, but I will link him below. It's a short book, but it sounded really interesting. It kind of gave me similar vibes to, oh gosh, what's it called? I'm blanking. 100 Years of Solitude. It kind of gave that vibe a little bit, and so I'm really looking forward to reading this because I loved 100 Years of Solitude. That was probably one of my favorite reads from last year. Hi, my cat just is saying hello. All right. Okay, come here, come here. All right, love you. Oh, no, that's my sweater. Ah, no. Please don't rip my sweater. It's my favorite sweater. Oh, why do you have claws? Okay, all right, we're snuggling now. Hi. Okay, moving on. 48. Do you want to talk about your favorite books? This is Princess Fluffy Butt, for anyone who wants to know. Oh yeah, that's some purrs. You hear the purrs? All right. 48, related to the word nemesis. I chose The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a shorter book, but I have not met a gothic book that I don't like, and so I thought that would be fun because nemesis, you know, like they hate each other, right? It's like that back and forth. Yeah, so I've never read it. I thought it'd be a fun read this Halloween. So The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. All right. 49. In the 800s of the Dewey Decimal System. I looked this one up and I forgot what that means, but The Turn of the Screw by Henry James was in that list, and it's a classic horror, and so I was like, you know what, that would be really fun for Halloween. I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I don't really know what it's about, but I'm excited. It has great reviews. Okay, 50, Set in a Castle. Guys, if I had not already read Carmilla last year, I would totally put Carmilla here. It is one of my all-time favorite books. However, I want to read something new, and I've never read Dracula. So I was like, okay, vampires, gothic, set in a castle. Yes, I'm gonna read that one. It'll probably be like a November read. For some reason, me and vampires just vibe in November. I don't know what it is. I just really feel like vampires are like a November month. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, I plan on reading that in November. Okay, 51 includes a map. Google said Before the Coffee Gets Cold includes a map. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. However, it is a book that I want to read because it again, it's one of those magical realism Japanese novels that I've really been into recently, and I want to give it a shot. So yeah, I'm gonna read Before the Coffee Gets Cold for prompt 51. All right, guys, last one, I promise, and then I'll let you go. 52, published in 2026, Sea of Charms by Sarah Beth Durst. Yes, it is her third book coming out in that series, and I'm so excited. I don't know what it's going to be about because the last book that came out included a character that we had read about previously, but in the Enchanted Greenhouse, we didn't really like leave that island. So I don't know what it's going to be about, but I'm super excited. I'm sure whatever she wrote and comes up with is going to be amazing, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be cute, and it's going to be cozy. and The Perfect Summer Read. It comes out, I think, in June or July. I'd have to double check. But yeah, I'm so excited for the rest of this challenge to really push myself and expand my reading repertoire. If you're participating, please let me know. I would love to hear some of your most anticipated reads, any recommendations that you have, because I'm sure as I go on throughout the year, this list is going to change and update. But yeah, I'm just so excited to really kind of push myself and really explore some more literature. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.